Okay, you know this book? This is the first edition of the Alcoholics Anonymous, 1939 book. I am telling you, this is the first edition of Alcoholics Anonymous, written in 1939. तो भी क्या forward क्या है? We of Alcoholics Anonymous are more than 100 men and women who have recovered from a seemingly hopeless state of mind and body. To show other alcoholics precisely how we have recovered is the main purpose of this book. So what is the purpose of this book? To show other alcoholics precisely how we have recovered. And here precisely how we have recovered is all in capital letters. It's highlighted. Precisely how we have recovered is this book. What is the purpose of this book? To show us what they did exactly to recover, so that we can do exactly what they did and recover.
Exactly.
Huh? So what is given in the first Bill story? How did he recover? Oh my, 1 minute. Okay, so precisely how we have recovered. In Bill's story, they tell you that Abby came to him, and then his friend Abby, Bill's friend, and Bill got himself admitted in the hospital, and there Abby came to meet him. Now on that page he says, at the hospital I was separated from alcohol for the last time. Treatment seemed wise, for I showed signs of delirium tremens. It's all the hallucination alcoholics ko hota hai when they give up drugs. Bill was going through that, so he was admitted. Then after 2-3 days, here he writes, my schoolmate visited me and I fully acquainted him with my problems and deficiencies. We made a list of people I had heard and towards whom I felt resentment. Now this is his fourth step, making a list of resentments and people whom he had hurt. That is the fourth step, and after that he shared with his friend fully his problems and his deficiencies. That is the fifth step. So that fourth and fifth step, immediately first thing you have to do if you want to recover. Bill did it when he was 2 days sober. Dr. Bob story, I mean I won't go through read the whole thing, there fine pages, but there he says, Dr. Bob, let's see if I can find Dr. Bob's nightmare. It's there in Dr. Bob's. That thing I read about Bill's story was on from page 13 of the big book. Okay, there he says, Dr. Bob was drinking. Bill went to his place. First day, 5 o'clock he entered. We entered her house at exactly 5 o'clock and it was 11:15 when we left. I had a couple of shorter talks with this man, Bill W, afterwards, and stopped drinking abruptly. Okay? So Dr. Bob did his fourth, fifth step when he was drinking. Whereas this chap, Bill, did it when he was 2 days sober. So the whole program is you have to talk about this thing, and while you talk about your problems and deficiency, the person who is helping you will write the inventory, because here Bill writes what? We made a list of people I had hurt and I had resentments. If Bill had written it, he would have written that I made a list of people whom I had hurt and resentments. So this inventory is to be written by the sponsor, the person who is helping you. Okay? Now, what is the program? In the first edition of in this book, in step 12, it says, having had a spiritual experience as the result of the steps, we try to carry this message to alcoholics and practice these principles in all our best. Okay? Spiritual experience. It doesn't say now in the present step we say that he has a spiritual awakening. What does spiritual awakening mean? Nobody knows. I mean, only Buddha, Muhammad, or some people have spiritual awakening. We can't. So that is nonsense. But what is a spiritual experience? Because in this 1939 book, it says we can have a spiritual experience as a result of these steps. And the spiritual experience is what is given on page 27 of the big book. There is a solution where we have built that Roland Hazard goes to Dr. Carl Jung, the greatest psychiatrist, a psychoanalyst, and he says once here and there, once in a while, alcoholics have what are called vital spiritual experience. Now here he tells him what a vital spiritual experience is. He says, to me, these occurrences, these experiences are phenomena. They appear to be in the nature of huge emotional displacements and rearrangements. Ideas, emotions and attitudes, which were once the guiding forces in the lives of these men, are suddenly cast to one side, and a completely new set of conceptions and motives begins to dominate them. This is what a spiritual experience is. It's a psychological experience where you have huge emotional displacements and rearrangements, so that your ideas, attitudes and emotions change and you are able to stay sober. Okay? So that is what the whole program is for. And for that, here he says that main thing you have to go and tell your story. Huh?
True story.
So then what about the steps? Why are the steps written and all that? And is it a spiritual program? What program it is? Here it says in Bill's, no, where's that thing? We agnostic, it says. About half, on page 44 it says, about half our original fellowship was exactly that type. They were atheists and agnostics. In 1939, half the people
agnostic
who don't believe in God. Who are not sure God is there or not. Atheist means you don't believe in God. So half the fellowship, the big book says, that came in 1930, before 39.
Many of them are agnostics.
Half of them were atheists or ex. Okay? So today it will be at least 70-80%. Okay? And then he says, so this book is written as God, 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 but when dealing with such a person, atheist or agnostic, you had better use everyday language to describe spiritual principles. So here he is warning when you are helping. This is in chapter Working with Others, page 93. When you are helping a newcomer, you had better use everyday language to describe spiritual principles. Principles or steps.
Oh yeah, everyday language.
Don't use God. Talk a scientific language with everybody. God is not to be brought into this thing at all. And today they are doing just the opposite. They are talking about God in the fellowship. Okay? So when you are helping a newcomer or anybody in the fellowship, never bring the word God in. That's what the 39 book says. Today they are doing just the opposite. Now what the steps are? First step is, you know what? Lack of power, that was our dilemma. अपना प्रॉब्लम क्या था कि we lacked the power. We had less power. We didn't have sufficient power to stay away from drugs or alcohol. Okay? So lack of power, that was our dilemma. That's the first step. First step is that you lack the power, right? That means you admit that you don't have the power to stop your drinking, or you lack the power to return again and again to your drinking. Then you have finished your first step. Okay? Then it says we had to find a power by which we could live. If you want to stay away from drugs, you had to find the power by which you can live. And it had to be a power greater than ourselves. And here the word power greater than ourselves, this is on page 45, the agnostic chapter. A power greater than ourselves is written in italics. You know why it is written in italics? Because whenever in italics in written language means it is explaining something, it is defining something. When unfamiliar words come, like this power greater than ourselves is unfamiliar. Why? Because I am not a power. You are not a power. So there can never be a power greater than me or you. There can never be a power greater than us or ourselves. So this power greater than ourselves is just a word used for a power by which we could live. Okay? Since you don't have the power, you need the power by which you can live. That power by which you can live is called God in this program. Okay? And it has been called many others, higher power and this. But where are you going to get that power and how? Okay? That is precisely the purpose of this book. Now, where you are going to get that power, it tells you in the same We Agnostic chapter, right in the end. We finally saw, actually we were fooling ourselves. Page 55 it says, actually we were fooling ourselves.
Right.
Because deep down in every man there is the fundamental idea of God. Where is that God going to find? Deep down in ourselves. Okay?
Yes.
Yeah, so here it says, we found the great reality. Capital G, capital R. That means God. We found the great reality. That means you can call it in Hindi, Param Satya. Knowledge of everything. We found the great reality deep down within us. In the last analysis, it is only there may be found. H is capital. So the last analysis, only deep down within ourselves that God can be found. It was so with us. That means the 100 men who wrote this book, they are saying that for us, God means, for this program, God means only that thing that is there, power that comes from deep down within yourselves. And above it says, you know what? It may be obscured. Obscured means clouded. You can't, by calamity, by pomp, and by worship of other things. But in some form or the other it is there, deep down in us. Okay? Now what is it obscured by? Calamity. Like all the nonsense that has happened to you, how people treated you horribly and you reacted and had resentments and developed fears, all that is your calamity. Okay? Right? And by pomp. Pomp means we are big, we are showing off big and everything. And the third thing is what? By worship of other things. There is all the worship of the outside gods, religion. Ram, Lakshman, no belief in Krishna. All that worship of that has to stop. Worship of Allah has to stop. That is what is clouding this higher power which is there within each and every one. Okay? So this is, now it has told you, our lives have become unmanageable means what? That's why we are going back to drugs. So what does life becoming unmanageable mean? That also he has explained in this We Agnostic chapter. He says, we ask yourself this question. We were having trouble with personal relationships. Right? Hey. We were having trouble with personal relationships. We are having problem with personal relationships. We couldn't control our emotional natures. Is that true? We were a prey to misery and depression. We couldn't make a living. We had a feeling of uselessness. We were full of fear. We were unhappy. We couldn't seem to be of real help to people. If these things are there in your life, even 1, 2, 3 of them are there, your life is unmanageable. Okay? So now can you admit your life is unmanageable? And all this is mainly we could not control our emotional nature. See, because these emotions, anger and fear, when we get very angry, we can't think. And that's why we do stupid things and our life becomes unmanageable. So our main problem is anger, resentments and fear. That's
Hello.
what makes our lives unmanageable. 1 minute.
हाँ बोल